What's up and welcome back? I'm John Stark, back the movie guy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And we're back. It's another anniversary release. This movie has turned 30 years old. This is The Bridges of Madison County, directed by Clint Eastwood, starring Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep, with a script by Richard Gravenese, and it's based on a best-selling novel. There's also a Broadway musical that's really great. It's written by Jason Robert Brown, and it stars Stephen Pasquale and Kelly O'Hara. You should take a look at that if you're a fan of Bridges of Madison County. You haven't yet heard the musical yet. The music is beautiful in this. There's a song called 1 Second in a Million Miles where he starts the song on such a power move. It's like all a cappella at the beginning for like a minute. He's just going. I'm like, man, I'd love to be on a Broadway stage just a cappella singing, just just killing it, being like, no music needed, just my voice. Anyway, so Bridges of Madison County, the movie. What's up with it? Where to watch it? Did I like it? What's the audio? Does it have audio description? It does. It has audio description. It's on, unfortunately, it's on Prime, and we know what that means. It's a TTS track. Um, you know what though? It's a well-written TTS track. Like, I've heard humanly that's the thing. Like, let's have a conversation. We're gonna step back from the bridges for a second. We're gonna come into this other conversation about I'm diving head in. This is hello sighted people, welcome. Please join us for a second. So we have this conversation all the time about AI and TTS versus humanly narrated audio description, right? And we're like, well, we would prefer the humanly audio. There's a lot of shit that falls into that category. I just want to be really clear. There's a lot of shit that's in the human narrated list that's really inadequate. That's just absolute waste of time. It gives you virtually nothing, and it's almost like what, like, just don't even bother. I mean, and then over here, I have what is a very thoughtfully written script that unfortunately Amazon just didn't pay for a human to narrate. So is Bridges of Madison County the worst audio description track of the year? No. And unlike some of Amazon has had some other tracks that don't line up correctly, they've had some bad TTS tracks too. So it's not like TTS is just a whole bunch of great writers. They outsource them to different companies who all come back with different levels of quality. This is well written. It just sounds ass. This is the only problem. It sounds, and it's old school TTS. I don't know if they're ever going to relay a voice over it, if they're ever going to bother to update the TTS so it sounds like one of the newer AI voices that sound a little bit more human. But it's that older voice. It's on like a whole bunch of other things. It's like vaguely female. It's that voice. And it's fine, I'm not thrilled with the track, but it is if nothing else, it's well written. So that's one thing that I can't take away from it. But the movie itself is well done, as you would expect from a Clint Eastwood movie. It's not typically referred to as being, Clint Eastwood's best. It's because when he wants to be, he's a banger director. When he doesn't want to be, he's crying macho. So, there's a scale of Eastwood movies. So, but Bridges is somewhere near the top. I thought it's very, it's a very adult drama, like a very adult romantic drama that asks sort of important questions about love, life, loneliness, unfulfillment, um, appreciation, a lot of complex theories that run through Meryl Streep's character, Francesca, who is an Italian immigrant living in Iowa, of all places. And, about she remembers sort of the old country, and that's sort of how she bonds early on with this photographer played by Clint Eastwood because he's sort of worldly and he's been everywhere. And she's just so taken aback when he first tells her, because she's like, they're talking about like where she's been from, and he tells her, and she's like, oh, you wouldn't know, this is a small little Italian village. And he's like, yeah, I've been there. And she's like, what, you have? How? And he's like, yeah, I was out on a train. It looked like a pretty village, so I just stopped and stayed for a few days. He's like, she just can't, but like, her life is so completely different. She's never been allowed to have those choices. So for her to just stop and stare at something because it's pretty for a few days just is not like completely at all in her purview. It's just not something she's ever thought about before. So when she hears him do it, and it's also, by the way, telegraphing to the audience what this movie's about, which is him stopping for a few days because he sees something pretty. Because this is an affair that lasts for essentially 4 days, but it's this like affair that has these, you know, everlasting repercussions. When we open the film, she's passed, and her kids are there to hear the will read and her wishes and all that stuff. And when they start hearing things that they didn't know that their mom would want, like to be cremated and have her ashes poured off of a bridge, um, they're thrown. And eventually they find this letter that tells them the story, and they find a letter that Eastwood's character wrote to her, and things start kind of getting pieced together. And of course, they're sort of mortified, the son more so than the daughter, at the idea that their mother was cheating on their father, or had cheated on their father. And they sort of read the story. I mean, she's written it out into like 3 journals. And so as we're watching the movie, as we're watching Meryl Streep and Clint Eastwood, supposedly these kids who are played by actors who honestly just didn't go on to do anything. I don't know who they are. Um, this film is Eastwood and Streep. Um, so as they, as they read the things, we see it played out on camera, and it's interesting. And covered bridges are dope, by the way. Like, if you've never gotten to see one, it feels like you're stepping into, a time portal. You're like, we have one of these? What is this? You're like, you don't want to drive across it because you're like, this thing has definitely been here for like 800 years. You know? It hasn't, but I mean, feels like that. And you're like, I just kind of want to walk across it. But yeah, when I was a kid, I definitely remember being taken to a covered bridge, not in Madison County, Iowa, but elsewhere. We have covered bridges throughout the country. So if you ever have a chance to experience one, they're kind of cool. Kind of like an old school thing to do. I would think, even as a blind person, because a lot of people they're not always drivable because they've been there a while. So a lot of people just kind of walk down them, and that's kind of what happens here. Is they kind of park, and he sort of like takes photos of the covered bridges, and yeah. And this is set during like the 60s too, when like it was a little bit, I'm sure more people drove across in the 60s, and we had less giant trucks and SUVs and everything that are weighing things down. But it's weird because I've never really thought of Eastwood as being like a romantic lead. He doesn't really strike me as somebody as being like, oh my God, he's so hot. God, he always kind of like, he's really, I don't know. He always looks like he's kind of like what the Crypt Keeper was before he like lost his skin. He's very skeletal as a person. Even like in his earlier stuff, I've just never really looked at Clint Eastwood and been like, give me a piece of that. So, like, I've never understood how this movie works on women, which is obviously its target audience. But as a gay man, I just, no, Clint Eastwood has never, at any point in his career, have I ever looked at him and be like, oh, that was a guy. Um, I don't know, maybe I need to go all the way back to Rawhide and be like, hello, sir. But even then, like I've seen early pictures of him, he's never been something where I'm like, I don't know, this guy's a romantic lead. And he mostly has avoided it. Like most of his career is avoiding being a romantic lead. So it's interesting to see him in this role and diving into it and directing himself into it. Now, Meryl Streep is also somebody who you could argue doesn't usually get that romantic lead role, but she gets it all the time because she's so fucking relatable. Because every woman feels like they're Meryl Streep at some point in their life. Whenever you watch them, like, whenever you watch movies, you're going to find a Meryl Streep performance that you resonate with because she somehow has managed to play all of them. So she's played so many different women that at some point in your life, you will find a Meryl Streep movie that you resonate with her and her performance. So she feels like the every woman. She feels like all of us somehow. So the fact that she's here playing an Italian and killing it and just doing her usual, like, I'm Meryl Streep. Actually the god of acting, the ancient Greek god. I've come down from Earth to bless you with my skills. Like, she's just so far away from everybody else. It's ridiculous. Yeah, she's fantastic. And Eastwood is shockingly good in a role that I would think he's not good in. He's awkward enough, and she's convincingly attracted to him enough that it works, that it plays off. So, and it's neither one of them are, like silly kids. It's not a comedy. It's just this two people sort of crossing paths at this moment in time, and what that's like. So it's Valentine's Day coming up, and this is an anniversary year. I've been doing a lot of movies that turned last year. This is one of the first ones that I'm doing that turned its age this year. So it turned 30 in 2025. It's a 1995 release. And mainly because it had audio description, and I'm looking for romantic movies, and I'm going to pull them either from last year or this year and slap an anniversary on it and send it out into the world. And yeah, there's audio description available for this if you want to watch The Bridges of Madison County again. Oddly enough, this was my first time through it. Yeah, I just never really brought myself to watch. It was always on a list of things where I was like, but it was lower. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was on the list of things where I was like, I want to watch that movie, but it was never on it was never high, like, on that list. It was never like, I feel like I need to see Bridges of Madison. It was always like, I should see it at some point. If it crosses my path, I'm going to watch Bridges of Madison County. Well, an anniversary year made me watch Bridges of Madison County. So for the first time through, and oddly, because I'm more familiar with the musical, I became more familiar. I knew what the plot was from having known the musical. I'm a big fan of Jason Robert Brown, so you would think that would have triggered me to watch the movie, but I was pretty much happy with living in the world in which I only knew the Bridges of Madison County musical. So, Kelly O'Hara is a killer singer, and Jason Robert Brown is my favorite music theater composer, so that's all I needed. If you get a chance, check out that soundtrack because it's fantastic. But Bridges of Madison County is a pretty solid movie. It has stood the test of time. I would argue anything that is still being adapted into other things, if we're ever thinking about doing a remake or a TV adaptation of anything or a Broadway musical fairly recently in the last couple of years. I guess I don't think it's been 10 years yet since the musical, probably like 6 or 7. But anytime like that, then yeah, it's been standing the test of time somehow. Maybe not profoundly to where you think about it all the time like we do some films. You know, there's some films that just slap you in the face on a daily basis that are older, like Star Wars, where you're like, Star Wars. You know, I thought about it today, you know. We can't hold everything to the same level of just people randomly walking around going, "May the force be with you." It's like that movie's gonna stand the test of time, and people won't even know what cinema is, and people will still be quoting it, and they'll be like, "We stopped doing movies. Now we have virtual experiences where you live things, and may the force be with you." Like, um, but yeah, this is fine. So, audio description track, it's gonna be TTS, and there's audio ducking, and it's obnoxious, but it's well written, so I'm not that mad at it. It's not like the best written script ever, but it's well written enough that had this been human narrated, I don't think anybody would have flinched. And then had it been like balanced properly by somebody who knew how to balance an audio description track. So the writer here did a good job. Um, I'm gonna give Bridges of Madison County. I was pleasantly surprised. Enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it an A minus. I think it's a really solid drama. I don't think it's Clint Eastwood's best. I don't think it's Meryl Streep's best. I don't think it's the best directing, but I think it's a very solid film that could flesh out if you were doing a top 10. You know what I'm saying? It could be like a number 10 on your top 10. I feel like it's that, you know, for people, if you're going through your own personal lists and you're like top 10 films directed by Clint Eastwood, top 10 films starring Clint Eastwood, top 10 films starring Meryl Streep, I feel like this one comes in maybe at number 10 on your list. So, not bad. Those people have very deep filmographies. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you guys on the other side.